Utah. Craig Israelsen is back with us to give us an update of his retirement portfolio analyzer, the spreadsheet models that he uses that you can get from his website, 712portfolio.com. Am I getting all right? 712portfolio.com. The links will be in the show notes and everything, but it's kind of an end of year scenario and some good stuff. And you're going to get a lot out of this. So, Craig, welcome back, man. I appreciate you jumping on board on this beautiful fall day.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep,
Absolutely.
I'm happy to be here with my friend Josh.
And I'm going to share this. I'll make you the host, Craig, and we're going to, one second right there. And then you can just jump on to it and make host. And again, we'll put the link into the show notes, everybody. So you can, if you want to get your copy of his tool, and he'll go into how to do that here, but we'll make sure we get the links in there. So Craig, you are now the host. So, and take it away. Absolutely.
Okay. Are you seeing the spreadsheet?
I am not. No, sir.
Okay. Let's make sure that, let's see, share. There we go. Entire screen.
There you go. Yes, sir. All right, it's coming up.
Okay. Excellent.
There we go. Yep, you got it. Absolutely.
So for those who might be familiar with this tool, it's called the Retirement Portfolio Analyzer, or RPA. This is a historical analytical tool. It's not Monte Carlo analysis. It's historical returns of major asset classes that allow us to test retirement portfolios under a number of different variables and scenarios and withdrawal rates and asset allocations and cost. And you'll see just in a moment. And the point of this, if I could encourage you to hear what we're going to talk about in this light, which is the kind of the worst possible thing is to be in a good situation and to not realize it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you signed yearbooks, you know, oh, I wish I'd gotten to know you. Yeah. But you had a whole school year to do it.
Right.
And so there's this regret, you know, with this regret that we didn't do this or that.
Oh, man.
Well, so in a kind of a similar spirit, there is the distinct possibility that a person has built a very adequate retirement portfolio. They have a variety of retirement cash streams, but they are determined to see it kind of in a pessimistic light. Like, you know, just this continual worry and concern that they're going to be eating cat food under a bridge. And so this tool is designed to instill confidence. And if you'll hear and listen and watch with that perspective, then we won't get so hung up in all of the quantitative stuff per se, but in the feelings of security, the feelings of confidence, the feelings of encouragement. That would be my goal. Now, having said that, it's going to get technical here a little bit, but hopefully you hear it in that sort of optimistic spirit. So let me just give you an idea of how this tool is designed. We've got 99 years of data. So in 99 years, that's 1926 to 2024, there are 75 rolling 25-year periods. So the way I would like you to think about it is that in the first rolling 25-year period from 1926 to 1950, that's when Susan was withdrawing money. That's her 25-year period. The next was Jamie. Jamie's pulling money out from 1927 to 51. Then Andrew from 1928 to 52. So there's 75 different people, and we're looking at their collective experience in terms of how the retirement portfolio behaved, what it allowed us to withdraw, how much was remaining, and then any number of scenarios in and around all those variables. So once you see it that way, you know, the whole rolling 25-year thing, it'll be easier to understand the screens that I'm going to show you. So let's start with this screen. This is Excel based. It works on the PC, obviously. It works on the Mac using Excel. So it's a It's a pretty adaptable tool if you have Excel. So in the bright yellow cells are where the user enters data. So pretty straightforward stuff. Let's enter 2025 as the current year. Just to make things easy, $1 million as the retirement account balance. And again, to keep things easy, let's just say that the current age is 73 years of age, and that coincides with RMD, and RMD is selected right down here. So at this point, we can adjust asset allocation. So we have a large stock, large US stock, S&P 500. We have a small stock allocation in our retirement portfolio. We have a bond allocation, and we have a cash allocation. I understand that there are other asset classes out there. And this tool actually has another set of tabs where if you wanted to do a 7-asset model, let me kind of get that bigger, you can do this. It doesn't have as many time frames because we can't go back to 1926. We don't have the data. But this allows you to look at 7 asset classes. So we can get a little bit more granular over a shorter time frame, but to give you the spirit of this tool, let's just focus on the 4-asset. So let's do this. Let's assume a person is super conservative. They have 50% bonds and 50% cash. Okay. And the money is being pulled out based on the RMD schedule. The RMD schedule, if you click right over here on this tab, it shows you the RMD percentages. And at 73, it's 3.77%. So you have to withdraw 3.77%. After, the year's over, before you file taxes, you've got to pull that percentage out of your portfolio value. And you got to do that in this software. You do that for 25 years. That takes you to age 97. Most of us probably won't make it to 97. So a 25-year window encompasses the vast majority of a person's experience withdrawing money from their retirement portfolio. So that's kind of the RMD world right there, from 3.77% to just under 13%. Now, what's interesting, if you look, if you can see it, it's kind of small, but the average of those 25 RMDs is 6.96, or call it 7%.
Oh.
So the average RMD, which is not a terrifically useful thing because you never really withdraw. I mean, you have an escalating percentage, but it just happens to average out at 7. So with that, determining the RMD, determining how money is taken out, we now can tinker with a couple of things. One is the cost of the portfolio. Again, bright yellow cells are where you can enter your variables. We could go to 100 basis points. That's 1 percentage point. Let's keep it at 50 basis points. And with a 50-50 bond cash portfolio, with $1 million starting balance, our average withdrawal was $62,000. It's pretty impressive.
That's a 66% right there.
Yeah. So that portfolio, 50% bonds, 50% cash, that had a 99-year average return of 3.65%. With a very low volatility score, standard deviation, ugly technical terms. So 3.5% is roughly the return of that type of portfolio. It's very conservative, but that may be what a person is comfortable with. So be it. So the question is, well, there's a couple of questions. Number one, how much do we withdraw on average? Well, that's a 25-year average. Okay, and that's useful, but averages are tricky because they mute the variation involved.
Yes. Right.
And so in just a minute, we're going to look at the variation of the withdrawals each year for each individual. But to give you a quick view, it's right here in this graph, the graph right below, this one right here. That it looks like a coiled wire coming uncoiled from left to right. So those, every colored line represents the withdrawal for that retiree, there's 75 of them, in each year. And you can see that some of them are escalating. That's encouraging. And some of them are, the annual withdrawals are kind of flat.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of variation because the sequence of returns in a portfolio varies. So by the end, in this far right of the graph, that's the 25th year withdrawal for all 75 different people. Look how different that is. That is, I mean, that's a really conservative portfolio.
Yes, exactly.
What that addresses is the issue of sequence of returns volatility or sequence of returns risk. And that's what retirees probably worry about the most. Is my portfolio going to get smacked in the head out of the gate once I start withdrawing? Because of that fear, that may motivate someone to be more conservative than they might otherwise be because they're letting fear really drive that thought process. So let me come back to that in just a moment. So the average withdrawal is certainly one piece that we want to focus on. Another piece is how often did these withdrawals increase year over year? 71% of the time. Wow, that's cool. How often did the withdrawals keep up with inflation? And I'm talking about not the average inflation. I'm talking about the inflation as it occurred year to year to year.
So like 1966, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Right, exactly.
Yep. I'm not using these average
Right.
figures for inflation. I'm using the actual
Yep, 100%.
rate every year. Okay, so that's those numbers in this green background, those pertain to the withdrawals from the portfolio, as is this green-backed graph. The blue has to do with the balance. So the average ending balance in year 25, remember we had $1 million start, was 593, call it 600,000. Okay, that's encouraging because it's still positive, and this is a pretty conservative portfolio.
Very conservative. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say very, you're right. And so you still have a positive above zero balance.
Right.
Your balance grew, however, only 23% of the time, which means it declines the inverse of that, roughly 78% of the time.
When you say grew, that means at the end of 25 years is worth more than $1 million. That's
right.
Okay.
Yep. Grew from the
22% of the time, basically a quarter of the time is worth more than you started with 25 years previously.
Yeah, and those are right over here. So this black dotted line, whichever of those, because these lines in this graph reflect the balance of the portfolio in each year for all 75 people. So it's quite a varied experience, but you only have a handful of people that actually grew their balance. Most people had a decline in the balance. But let's not forget, they still have a positive balance.
Right.
And that's reflected in the success rate. The success rate is 100%.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no circumstance where the portfolio was out of money. Okay, does that mean that that's always the case? Oh, obviously not. Let's keep it at a 50-50 bond cash portfolio. I'm going to enter a 0 in this cell. And now that opens up these options down here. Because previously, we were using RMD, and RMD is a percentage. Or we could use 4%. Let's use 4%. That's kind of classic. The numbers change. Now we go from 60 some odd thousand to 45,000 because 4% is a static percentage. It's not an escalating RMD. But you'll notice the success rate is always 100%. In other words, when you withdraw a percentage of a portfolio's value in any given year, that withdrawal will more or less take into account, not more or less, it takes into account what happened to that portfolio in the prior year. So some years, using a percentage withdrawal, your withdrawal will actually go down because the portfolio had a negative return, like in 2008, 2022, 2001, 2002. We can point to these years when even a well-diversified portfolio had an overall negative return. And so the percentage approach to portfolio withdrawals does not guarantee that your income withdrawn each year will be the same or will go up. It cannot do that. But so that's a con, so to speak. The pro is that because the withdrawal is allowed to go down because it's a percentage of a declining balance in that year, that is an act of mercy to the portfolio. So a percentage-based method is more merciful and helps the portfolio survive, as long as you can live with the fact that you don't know exactly how much you'll be withdrawing. In a lot of cases, it's more than you expected, but in some cases, it's less than you did last year. Okay, so what's the contrast to that? The contrast is to say to a portfolio, hey, I want you to give me $60,000 every year. Okay, that's what I want. And I don't care if you had a negative return. I want 60K.
And remember, this is still with 50% stock, 50% bonds,
Yeah,
and 50% cash. So
yeah, and this is a conservative, really conservative portfolio.
And yet 42% of the time, your increases were higher than the year before. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So with a $1 million portfolio, let's say that I want 40,000 because that represents 4% of $1 million. Okay, and let's say I don't even want a COLA. So I'm going to set these COLA figures to 0. All right, so the annual withdrawals, this graph becomes super boring because it's just 40,000 every year. And let's look, so our metrics, how often did the withdrawals increase? Well, they never did. How often did they keep up with inflation? Less than 10% of the time. What was our average balance after 25 years of withdrawals? 1.44 million. Whoa. So this thing grew on average. How often did it grow? Well, roughly half the time. What was your success rate? 100%, because again, it's a low enough withdrawal that well, I'll show you in a second, but a 40,000 withdraw from $1 million start, that's doable. Let me show you though how quickly this thing caves in. Let's do a $45,000 withdrawal. Whoops. Now my success rate for the first time, as we're, in this little webinar, I'm now down to 96% success rate. Wow, that's a little bit of a fine line. I mean, does a person just intuitively know, if I've got $1 million portfolio, it's 50 bond, 50 cash, and I do a 40,000 withdrawal every year, is that going to survive for 25 years? That's not something that's intuitive. We have to do analysis, to see historically. And then that analysis is pretty fragile, meaning there's a lot of numbers that are probably a lot of variables that are kind of on the razor's edge. And we just discovered it because we went from $40,000 withdrawal to 45,000, and we introduced some failures. 4% of the time, that portfolio did not make it 25 years. It was out of money. Let's go to $50,000. Whoa. Now we're down to 75% success rate. So that means 25% of the time, we ran out of money before 25 years was up. So this is in part what this type of tool, and there are other tools like this.
Well, Craig, just real quick, on the annual withdrawals over each 25-year period, you can see when we actually ran out of money, and that, right there.
Right here. Yeah, when these lines, exactly right, Josh. When these lines dive down to the bottom, that means that in that 25-year period, you were out of money in year 22. And then there's another 25-year period where you're out of money in year 23 and so forth. So clearly 50,000, historically speaking, with that allocation is not doable. Well, does it have to be that allocation? Let's go to say a 25% large stock, 25%, 25. Let's just do it equally weighted. Success rate is now 100%.
Oh, look at that.
The average balance at the end of 25 years was 4.1 million. And the 95% of the time, the portfolio grew over time, even though you're making withdrawals. So these variables that you can tinker with, they are interactive. In other words, the way you're withdrawing is being dramatically affected by your asset allocation. And your asset allocation dramatically impacts the optimal or safe or ideal withdraw amounts or withdraw rates. And so to illustrate something super fun, let me go back to a percentage-based withdrawal rate. And I'm going to leave this at, well, in fact, I'm going to go to 40, 20, 30, 10. This is a classic 60% equity, 40% fixed income portfolio. This is like the Vanguard Balanced Fund, the Fidelity Balanced Fund, any number. I mean, the Balanced Fund is almost always 60% stock, 40% fixed income. Okay, so with that as a benchmark and 4% withdrawal rate each year, these are our benchmark numbers. I'm going to get a piece of paper, and you don't have to do that, but if you want to follow along, I call this coloring along with Eddie. So we've got a 4% withdrawal rate, and our average withdrawal is 80, call it 86,000, so 86K. And our average ending balance is 3.4 million. Okay, impressive numbers. Let's go to 5%, because here's a retiree saying, no, oh, they're asking the question maybe a couple different ways. What's a safe withdrawal rate? Classic question. Or they might say, what withdrawal rate would kind of maximize my withdrawal without overly penalizing my average ending balance? Because obviously, if you raise the percentage that you're withdrawing, you inevitably are going to reduce the ending balance. That's like clockwork.
Yep.
What's not as clear is what happens to the average withdrawal. You would think as you keep escalating the withdrawal rate, percentage withdrawal rate, that you would keep growing the amount on average that you withdraw. That's not true. And I want to demonstrate how that's not true. So we have a 4% starting point. Let's go to 5%. Now we go to 92,000 is our average withdrawal. That's great. So that went up from 86,000 to 92. So a $6,000 annual increase. And our average balance went down to 2.6 million. Okay, we knew it was going to go down, and it goes down by about, $800,000. Okay, but it's 2.6 million.
Right.
After 25 years of withdrawal, we can live with that.
Oh.
Fine. Let's go to 6%.
There you go. So
at 6%, now we have call it a $96,000 average withdrawal and a 2.0 million. Okay, so we're still seeing an increase in the average withdrawal. All right, let's keep playing this game. So 7%, now we're at 9. So really no material change there. We flattened out. But our average balance at the end was 1.5 million. Let's do one more. Let's go to 8%.
Exactly, 8%.
8% keeps us at 96K. We flattened there, and now we're at 1.2 million. So I hope you see what we just discovered. There is no, historically, for a 60-40 portfolio with a 50 basis point expense ratio, there's no historical motivation to go beyond a 6% withdrawal rate, because we did not get an increase in the average withdrawal, but we got a systematic reduction in average ending balance whenever we went past the 6% withdrawal rate.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do 6% again in there, Craig. Let's just see. So 96 for 8.
So let's put 6 over here as the withdrawal rate.
90. Yeah, look at that. So it's about the same average, but yeah, you left about 800,000 more by the 6 and the 8. Interesting. That is interesting.
Right. So that's one of the beauties of any sort of analytical tool, is that it can give you some guidance historically. And we know from every prospectus we've ever looked at, every financial document we've ever looked at, it says past performance is no guarantee of future performance. We get it. Just like in the NCAA tournament, sometimes the 16 seed beats the 1 seed. We all understand that, but
Right.
there's these disclaimers have to always be included. So why are
I
we
put
doing this?
10% in there, Craig, if you don't mind. I'm just curious.
Oh,
So we got
10%?
90. Yeah, I'm just so now look at that. Interesting, went down. So now we've kind of reached a point of diminishing returns. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and we even did at 7%.
Yeah.
At 7%, there was not an increase in the average withdrawal and a continual decrease in the balance. So now the average ending balance is 689.
Yeah.
We're below what we started with.
And we had 3,000. That's actually I didn't that's pretty interesting. I didn't realize that from the last time we used this. So that's pretty interesting, man.
And there may be some people, it could be me, it could be anyone who says, you know what?
That's worth it. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I need to withdraw 10%. Okay. We look at the tool, we do the analysis, we say, all right, yeah, I understand it, but you get the same outcome with 7%. I mean, pretty close, but with a much higher average ending balance. So there's no reason to go to a higher withdrawal rate with this dogged idea that if I raise the withdrawal rate, I will always get more money. It doesn't play
I,
out that way.
I can disagree with you though. So look at the box annual withdrawals over each 25-year period. You can see on the front end, the reason why you see on the front end, it's on the lower end there. Now, if you put 10%, you're going to see it on the front end. It's like a much wider. See what I'm saying? It's a much wider variety on the 10%. So it's kind of like the 10% gives you it's almost like a standard deviation, significant different volatility in the withdrawals on the front end of retirement for the 10% over the 7%. So
Agreed.
that's
That's a good
interesting
observation.
because I would say, hey, if I'm only around for 15 years, again, I'm just throwing this out there,
Right.
but
Right.
you say, what do I maximize my retirement? Would it be 7% or 10? And there's no answer. I'm kind of throwing it out there. It's just more volatile.
Well, yeah, there's an interesting thing here on that very issue. And that is, let's go to 7%.
Yeah.
Now, let me go and I'm going to come back and circle back on what Josh just illustrated, because at 73, this analysis focuses on a 25-year
Yes. Good
window.
point. Yes. Right.
But Josh is saying, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, dude, I'm not living 25 more
Right.
years. My
Right.
genetics don't support that idea. Maybe I've got some personal behaviors. I skydive blind, with
I go to Greenland.
Yeah.
Craig, you go to Greenland.
Greenland. My wife and I just go back to Greenland, just hiking. So you're not really looking at 25 years. This is what Josh, where he's driving this. You're looking at over the next 10 years,
Right.
what's sort of optimal for me. Okay, here's kind of a way to try to get at that. We click on the budget tab. Okay, the budget tab
Yeah.
is, here we go. So let me just kind of walk you through this because it's going to show you in just a moment what Josh is referring to. Remember, bright yellow is where your data can be input. So here's, first of all, your Social Security information. And I understand there's different views on the longevity and so forth. Let's just proceed. If we're being optimistic in general, let's be optimistic specifically.
Right.
There's some Social Security benefit, may not be as much as you'd hope, but there is some. So here's your figure, your monthly benefits, 2,500. And you've already started. Here's a spouse, his or her, it's already started. So you've got collectively, those two together is $4,000. Okay, in year one, and then you've entered a COLA, 2.5%, could be 3, let's say.
Yeah.
Right. And then you've got opportunities to enter annuity income, other retirement income. Let's say there's neither of those. So to Josh's example, you're dependent on Social Security and your portfolio. That's it.
Right. Right.
Only 2 income sources. Okay, at a 7% withdrawal rate, from that portfolio that's 60-40 with 50 basis points of cost, a 7% withdrawal rate, your average monthly withdrawal in year one was 6,424. I'm going to write that down, 6,424, year one. And then in year 10, right here, I'm just looking across here, year 10, in this right here, it was 75.89. So 75.89, year one, year 10. Okay. With just that in mind, let's go back. Let's enter 10% here. And go back to the budget tab. This is what Josh was referring to.
Yeah, right.
Using a sort of a truncated time period where you're focused on your specific window, which in this case is 10 years, you had a first year withdrawal of 9,177 versus 6,400 with a 7% withdrawal rate. Now look what's happening. It's going down.
Yes.
Okay? The other one was going up.
Yep.
And so you're front loading your withdrawals because that's when you want to spend the money. And by year 10, your average withdrawal was 8,000, let's call it 8,000 even, whereas it was 7,600 before. So they're starting to converge.
Yep.
But on the front end, while you have the health and so forth, this is a classic. I've never actually, Josh and I we don't practice this stuff. He just looks at stuff and then it spurs an idea. I've never actually looked at it this way before, the front, because I'm always focused on 25-year.
Yeah, I understand.
But that's not realistic for whoever it's not realistic for. So that's.
Yeah, but then look at the last year, Craig, at 25. So here we got 63.87. I can't guarantee. I highly suspect that at 7%, it'll be the exact, it's almost like a seesaw. One goes, you see what I'm saying? I bet if you put the 7%, it'll be 9,300 or something like that. And
9,800. Good
yeah,
for
there
you.
you go. So it's just, so it all equals, this whole thing with sequence of return risk, at the end of the day is when does it hit? If it hits the front end, you're kind of SOL, but if it hits the back end, it's no big deal. It's the same. It was just interesting here that at the end of the day, though, if you take more out, you're going to have to get accustomed to, again, the diminishing returns. If you take less out, you can take higher returns as you go forward. It's just a matter of preference, frankly.
Yeah, it's almost like a Social Security analysis or
what I'm saying. Yep.
Where you wait till, later, 70, or you started at 62. Well, if you live to be 120, you should have waited until you were 70, right?
Exactly.
But if you live to be 70, you should have taken it out at 62 years of age. So it's a similar spirit to that. And the beauty of any tool, this is a analytical tool, is to give you the horsepower to think through.
Yes, 100%. And your tool has the visualizations, I think, that a lot of other tools don't, Craig. Like that graph is what jumped out at me. Like if you just would have thrown these numbers, it wouldn't have I'm just more visual. I probably have some dyslexia in my background, but the visual that this tool has, a lot of other software tools don't. They do the Monte Carlo and all that. I get all that. I'm not against it, but it's just these visuals are very helpful for different kind of learners, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and that's not even the best graph. The best graph, let's go ahead and leave it at 7%,
yeah, 100%.
The 60-40. Now let's click on this detailed for asset tab right here. This is a great tab.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite graph here too.
So what this allows us to look at is the experience of Susan, Nicole, Fred, Larry. You can name all these blue graphs, these blue bars, give them a name. That represents a single person. And this is their experience in the 25th year. In other words, that the height of the blue bar is their ending balance of their portfolio. And the green dots are the balance after 5 years, the first 5 years of withdrawing. In other words, here's a tool that analyzes things over 25 years, quarter century, as if, as human beings, we wait for 25 years to react to what we're experiencing. That
Exactly.
doesn't happen. We react in 25 hours or 25 days. So to try to get at that issue of recency bias,
Yes.
the green dot says, okay, you start this process of withdrawing from a portfolio, your balance after 5 years is X. What is that? Well, let's take the case here of the person who started withdrawing in 1926, right here on the left side of the graph. Turns out their balance after 5 years matches their balance after 25 years. Interesting. Yeah, let's look at this guy over here. So this person over here had a balance after 5 years of 558,000. Now remember, he's had a starting balance that the purple line right here, that's the starting balance. So these individuals, after 5 years, whenever you see the green dot underneath
Yeah.
purple dotted line, these are folks that had the potential to panic. Did they bail out? And what this graph is suggesting is hang in there, because 79% of the time, the balance after 25 years, the height of the blue is higher than the green. Nearly 80% of the time, the balance after 25 years was higher than the balance after 5 years.
Yeah.
That is, and Josh, I have no way of knowing all the software out there, but I would be pleased if there were any other program that reported that figure.
It's not this. I mean, look, I don't know them all, Craig. I mean, there's a good program called Income Labs that's pretty good, but I like the guy who runs it, but I don't think it comes anywhere near this right here. And this isn't just to blow smoke up your butt, but this is the difference. Your approach that you have relative to some other stuff is just night and day. And again, that's not to bash or belittle. I guarantee there's other things that are better with these other programs, but nothing like this, at least that I'm aware of.
Because again, remember, the motive here is to gain more confidence. And when we have more confidence,
100%. Yep. We're
we
not here
can.
I completely agree. And if you see that we have to take 5, you're like, look, man, after 5 years, we might need to do something differently. Okay, well, people do that. I mean, I guarantee if it's 2008, Craig, and you're on your last dime, you're not going to Greenland. You see what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
just common sense. You're going to take 5.
Yeah. So the real takeaway, let me try to identify some takeaways, because Josh and I could go for probably 6 hours on
I
this.
know, man. I was like, oh my goodness.
But some big takeaways are, number one, a percentage-based approach to withdrawals is the most logical and safe way to withdraw money, as opposed to demanding X amount, either a flat,
Right.
$40,000, 50,000, 60, whatever, and or not a COLA. So a percentage based. And let me just really quickly
100%.
give you an idea. Let me put 4%, because 4% is this classic withdrawal rate. Now I'm going to go back to the detailed.
Craig, you keep going. I'm going to walk away for a second to feed my dogs. You just keep going, okay?
Okay, no worries.
Yep.
So at a 4% withdrawal rate, I want you to look at this number right here. The percentage of time the annual withdrawal decreased the following year. So this addresses a retiree's fear. Because they figure out that if you use a percentage method to withdraw money from a retirement portfolio, there will be some years where your withdrawal is reduced. That is true. And in fact, over this 99-year analysis, looking at 75 different rolling 25-year periods, we can definitively say that you do, in fact, have a decreased withdrawal year over year, roughly 1/3 of the time. That's a reality. But until we go to the next piece of information, we really don't have a conclusion. The next piece of information is, okay, so 1/3 of the time you have a decline. Does anybody in the room want to ask the obvious question? On average, how much is the decline?
Right.
Because if it's not a material amount, don't worry about it.
Exactly.
The average decline was $5,700. Well, the average withdrawal is 85,000. Is 5,700 a life-altering decline relative to the average withdrawal of 85,000? I would say, oh, it's a noticeable decline, but it's
Right.
certainly not life-altering. I'll just have to make some adjustments. But that average is not evenly distributed. After a year like 08,
Right.
that loss will be more dramatic. But in general, with a percentage-based approach, you can know going in a third of the time, you'll have a modest to small decline in your average withdrawal. So what is the reason then to do that? Well, the reason is a percentage-based system of withdrawals will not kill a portfolio unless it's ridiculous. And let me show you what ridiculous looks like. 15%. So a 15% withdrawal rate, yeah, all the portfolios are still alive. You have a 100% success rate. None of them grew, and a lot of them are pretty close to zero, but they'll never hit zero because of the the nature of mathematics. This is called moving asymptotically toward the x-axis. You'll never hit the x-axis in technical terms, but practically speaking, you're getting close to out of money. So as long as our percentage is reasonable, 5% is reasonable, 6% can be reasonable, then you're not going to run out of money. And this was the 60-40. You could be a person who says, you know, volatility doesn't bother me in the slightest. I want 50% in large stock. I want 30% in small stock. I want 10 in bonds and 10 in cash. That's an 80-20. Okay. Your numbers go up. Your average ending balance goes up. All good if you really can deliver the lumber in terms of not reacting badly to volatility. And that's easier said than done for people who said, yeah, I don't need Novocaine and the dentist chair. And then suddenly 10 minutes later think, everybody makes poor life choices, right? I just made one.
Or the ladies who deliver without the epidural, whatever it's called. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, hey, man, you're stronger than me, but woo, that sounds.
Oh, and my wife actually had that experience one time. It got the epidural too late.
Well, really?
It was au natural. Yeah.
Oh,
It was one painful experience.
Oh, man, that's.
So let me take it back to the budget for 2 more minutes, and then we probably need to let these folks go, Josh.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to show you, it's just really something cool in the budget portion, which is after you've entered your Social Security data up here in the yellow, you've got your withdrawal information coming from the other tab that we've been tinkering with. You then have reported to you your estimated total monthly gross income from all sources. Awesome. And here's the range. In year 1, it was about 9,600. By year 25, it's 22, call it 23,000. The average is 15,406 times 12 gets you an annual. So I just wanted you to see the variability of the gross monthly income. And largely it's growing because the withdrawal is growing in the portfolio. Again, this is an 80, we changed. This is now an 80-20 portfolio. So let's just run with that for a second. You then can enter what percent of that income is taxable? Let's say that 80% is taxable. Okay. What's the tax rate? Let's just leave it at 25%. That then gives us an estimated total net income each month. And then just for FYI, in this column is the amount of tax you owe. Okay, here comes the kicker. This is the last piece of information. This is the last bright yellow cell. This is your monthly expenses. This is on you.
Right.
You have to figure out what those are. Let me give you a suggestion. Let's just say it's going to be 80% of your income. I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying, let's just get a starting point. It's that income times 0.8. So you can do calculations. This is a spreadsheet. use it as a spreadsheet. So 80% of your net is what you spend. That gives you a monthly surplus, as you would expect. And that monthly surplus accumulates.
Yes.
And this is what I wanted to show you. This is the part that is so cool. Here is over a quarter century, the growing cumulative budget surpluses. Those are real. I mean, if you really do only spend 80% of your income, that money accumulates somewhere. And this is keeping track of it. Then you add to that the balance, the growing balance of your retirement portfolio. So this is the year by year estimated growth of your portfolio. Added to that, any RMD that you're reinvesting. That's another option. I didn't show you that, but we can specify all that. That leads to this number right here, or that array of numbers. This is your estimated accumulated capital. Capital is surplus of unspent income plus your retirement portfolio balance. Those plus any RMD that got reinvested, that's what I call total accumulated capital. And that ends up at 3.48 million by year 25. When you come back to the 4-asset portfolio, there's that number right there. We didn't talk about it, but that's that number in pink.
Right.
That number in pink is really an important figure because it's more holistic than just focusing on your portfolio. It's everything. It's your Social Security, it's your income stream combined with your portfolio, and then the note to the side dependent on budget data. That's why I didn't talk about it before, because we had to enter the needed information in your budget, your quarter century budget, to have that number right here be meaningful.
And that's 2.7 million underneath it. That's just your portfolio balance.
That's just the portfolio. Right. Yeah. Right. And so once you know the construction of that number, that basically tells you, oh, so if I have a gap, if this is larger, this accumulated capital than my balance in my portfolio, that must be either unspent income, surplus up, or an RMD brokerage account that has a growth rate that I can assign a percentage to.
Craig, go back to that budget this page again. All right, now scroll all the way over to the left on this. There we go. All right, so where's the Social Security? Yeah, all right, so a nice thing about this too is see how the Social Security benefit is actually growing. You know, a lot of people say, well, if I take a fixed percentage, it's not keeping up with inflation potential. And I get that, but I'm like, but there's two sides of this coin. The other side is Social Security is giving you that adjustment on the upside. So it's not all, well, Social Security might not be keeping up in terms of your overall portfolio withdrawal, but it is giving you those bump ups that can at least mitigate some of the volatility of the 5 or 6 or 7% portfolio they're taking out if the market goes down. I just think a lot of people overlook that. There's two things going on here. Is we got a portfolio, but we also have this other thing called Social Security that has COLAs. And to discount one over the other just seems like you're leaving some, like, well, just like you said here, the accumulated value that includes Social Security. Oh my goodness. My dogs, for some reason, Craig, they love this stuff. That's why they're so excitable. Anyway, I just find that I wish people would focus on the two parts of the puzzle as opposed to just the one, if that makes sense.
Well, for a lot of years, as I was building this tool, I really focused on just this 4-asset portfolio tab. Yeah. It was all portfolio centric.
Yes, right.
And then my hiking buddy said, well, what about like cash flow?
Yes.
My response was, well, I assume people can just, build a spreadsheet on their own to do cash flow analysis or budget analysis. And the way he kind of responded to that suggested to me, I need to rethink that.
Yeah.
And just integrate it in. And that's what this budget tab, that to me was a real game changer, because I use this personally as I do my own estimating of my retirement benefits and, kind of estimate out if I'm in good shape. And if you want to introduce a little bit of pessimism, then I want to show you two ways to do it, and then we'll call it a day.
Right on.
Number one, you could go to a zero COLA.
Yes.
You could go to a negative COLA too, if you really, I mean, you could. And so what you can do is you can game out using game theory,
Yes.
sort of. Worst case scenario. So your worst case scenario is that Social Security benefits actually start to cave in. Okay, you can game it that way. And then you could go over here. I didn't talk about these yet, but now I will. These are historical performance adjusters.
Yep.
So we have the S&P 500 historical returns, which if you look in the annual returns tab, there they are. Here's the large stock returns every year. Here's the small stock returns every year, the bonds, the cash, the inflation. So it's all, this is the visible V8. I remember building that engine as a kid, the clear plastic V8 engine. You can see, everything moving. This is that part. You're looking into the spaghetti factory. This is where the raw data exists. And you can say, listen, I don't want to assume. So you're using this tool to get a sense of historically what has been, to cast some sort of predictive shadow into the future. That's why we're using this.
Yep.
It's not an absolute prediction mechanism, but it is a shadow. It's a shadow and a type of things to come. So you could say, I get it. My historical return for large stock over the last 99 years has been 10.42%. And you say, I don't think it'll be that going forward. Okay,
Right.
well then take 200 basis points off. Now you're at 8.38.
Oh.
And take 200 basis points off small stock, and take 100 basis points off of bonds, and take 50 basis points off of cash. All right, so you've entered some reductions. Then you look at your results. Did it kill you? Nope. These numbers went down. I mean, your average withdrawal is 90,000. Average ending balance is 1.8. Well, so we have 90 and 1.8. Let's go back to raw data. We have 114. Oh, okay. So you had about $25,000 ding and about a $900,000 ding in ending balance.
Right.
Well, that's material. That's really, those are different numbers. But the question is, can you live with those numbers?
Hey, 100%. It's not a deal breaker necessarily. It's not.
No, but that way, so the user has been somewhat pessimistic,
Right.
and then they look at the results and say, I can live with that. Ah,
Absolutely.
there's the optimism again. There's the confidence again. So you can introduce whatever mindset you want onto the tool. And if you can live with, let me just turn to the detailed for asset, you can come down here and say, what's the lowest ending balance? What's the lowest total 25-year withdrawal? What's the lowest balance at age 78? What's the lowest end of year withdrawal average? And if you can live with some of those worst case scenarios, that's when I think you say, all right, I am going to stop worrying about this every moment of the day, because it actually is affecting my health, both physical health and mental health. It's affecting my interactions. I'm spending money angrily, like go out to dinner because I want to go out to dinner, but then I'm angry at myself for spending $25,
Exactly, man. Yep.
And say, listen, let's get rid of that noise and stay within our budget, but remove the fear.
Yep.
And I just got to share a quote by C.S. Lewis.
Oh yeah.
It's a Christian thought. He talks about, if you've given yourself over to him being Christ, wouldn't it be the case that you would follow him, but in a new way, a less worried way? Isn't that a beautiful thought? A less worried way. I don't know, Josh, maybe that's the title for this webinar, but a less worried way is what this tool is trying to allow us. We do enough gyrations and analytics and back and forth and change this. And if we just can't break it, then let's move forward with more joy and more optimism.
So Craig, on my front page of my website, I say, I know there is nothing better for men than to rejoice and do good while they live. That's King Solomon in Ecclesiastes. And I just, it's like, how can you, well, we don't need to go too deep, but I'm like, be joyful, man. Be joy, not you and I. I mean, well, we need to be, obviously, but still, it's like, be joyful. And worrying is about that $25, ball game that you took your wife to. probably not going to be joyful. You know what I'm saying? It's probably not going to be joyful. Now, that doesn't mean you light cigars with $100 bills, but for heaven's sake, is if, in fact, Craig, on my book that I'm finishing up finally, it'll be done here in about 2 weeks. I use this quite a bit, and I said, the worst 25-year time frame according to your software. This does not include 2024, by the way, numbers. I said the worst 20 on a 60-40 portfolio. The worst 25-year time frame, net of inflation, the real return was 1.88. All right, so that's of all of a 60-40 portfolio, the worst net of the real return was 1.88. That was I want to say 1956. I can't remember, but it's like 1956 or 1958. And I'm actually using less than that in my scenario in terms of even worse than the worst. And I'm still coming up using this tool. I was like, man, if you can't break it, at some point, you just gotta say, I'm pretty good, man.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not God, we don't know, but come on. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm using well below historic rates of return, and I'm still coming up ahead, more often, well more often than not. It's crazy to me that people are just so stuck on I gotta work
Well,
at $25.
yeah, I think because there's this notion that a retirement portfolio can be envisioned as a barrel of water.
Yeah.
That is, you dip in to take water out, the water level in the barrel inevitably has to decline.
Yes.
Well, that's forgetting that the barrel has a property um, somewhat like the cruise of oil that Elisha, blessed, that it would never fail, and the meal would never fail. And this portfolio, this barrel, can actually increase in water volume.
Yeah.
That's the non-intuitive
Absolutely.
part of us as human beings, is that we just we somehow view the withdrawal of money as more destructive than the replenishment of the barrel by its own returns. But and that's why this graph right here is illustrating all of the cruises of oil that never failed. All the blue bars are there. You never ran out of money. And in some cases, the cruise of oil is now like 10 cruises of oil.
Right.
And we just don't want to believe it because it's kind of like, oh, that happens to my neighbor, but not to me.
Or that happened in the past. It can't happen again because we're so fearful built in. Hey, lastly, go back to the very front page of this because I just want to point out something too that you had put in here. Well, I'm sorry, the not the front page. Yeah, this guy. So we see 100. Remember, you did like 15% over here, Craig, and the
Oh yeah.
I just like to also point out where, so it still says 100%. 100%. I just think, Craig, people get too focused on my probability of success 100%. That means it's good. I'm like, well, is it really good if you're only spending $3 a year because you have a portfolio that's worth $10? Yeah, you never ran out of money.
Right.
I think that success rate is very overused to determine probabilities. Like, hey, no, let's look at the lifestyle. That's what I love about the budgeting tool you have in here, because the budgeting tool says here's our lifestyle as opposed to just a simple probability of success.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why success rate is buffered and bolstered by these other metrics.
100%. That's just
How often
part
did
of
it
it.
grow? What was the average balance? And you've got some really cool, back in the detail, you can scroll down, get these
Yes.
really cool graphs that look year by year by year. And basically, like, here's the account balance graph. Whoop, this
Yeah.
thing is heading south. That's a really high withdrawal rate. You go
No,
back
we
to
do.
something more
Right, exactly.
reasonable, like 5%, you come down, whoop, up we go. And so for those who are visual, you have expansions, on those two graphs we saw on the kind of the home page, but you can just get a sense of more or less, while there's variability, this thing is doable, and it'll carry me if I will stick with it. And that's truly my final point here. This analysis, all of these analytics, if you have like a 60-40, so we have 40-20, 30-10, here's a 60-40 portfolio. What do all of these results depend on? You staying in the
Yes.
60-40.
Exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
That and rebalancing. There's two things that are implied here. Whatever allocation you specify, that's what you're in for 25 years. Secondly, the rebalance. The rebalancing takes courage. So if a person can do that, that's how these results can come true. There'll be variation, just because the whole thing is based on variation. But if you can live with that variability or know going in, I'm investing in stuff that has ups and downs. Don't freak out when it has a down. I knew that going in.
Exactly.
You get on a roller coaster and then you're surprised that it goes up and down. Really? Wow. Yeah, who knew? So part of it is not only being courageous that this portfolio can carry us, we have something to offer to the portfolio, which I will stay with you. You
All
know,
right, Craig. So do me a favor, if you're still the host there, go to your website and show if you can. I don't know if you can open up a web
oh,
browser and
okay.
show people where they can get your software here if you don't mind. Yeah, so right there.
Yeah, so 712, the number seven, um, the word 12 portfolio.com, or up here you can see it.
Yep.
712portfolio.com. What you can do is just you can click on purchase the 712 report. That's going to open up a PDF, and that'll give you some information about a number of portfolio construction reports that I produce. But what we've been looking at today is the RPA.
Yep.
So the cool thing is, because Josh has been so generous to share his time with me and let me talk about this, for those, if you decide you're interested in the RPA, it's normally 150. But just mention if you email me, and my email is right here, greg@712portfolio.com. Just mention that you're coming from Josh. Just mention
Yeah.
Josh's name somewhere, and it'll be so it's $50 off.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that, because I actually have a reason. I'm happy. When I have people using the software, they will inevitably give me ideas
Mm.
how to prove it. And so the program is evolving and has evolved and will continue to evolve and get better. And that's because of users. And so I'm anxious to have that kind of feedback. I don't take offense when people say, oh, this part of it kind of sucks. Okay, I'll see if I can fix it.
Right, right.
So if you're interested, then you can just either you can print this out and mail it to me. Here's my address in Utah. You can email me, greg@712portfolio.com.
I'll put all the links in the show notes too. Scroll down just a little bit more there, Craig, and you'll see where it said scroll up. I thought it said a consultation. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
right
And
there.
that applies. And that applies. Yeah. So it's a $50 discount for Josh's listeners. And this is a 12 months. So you pay $100, it's a 12-month period. And I send updates automatically. I've
Yeah.
sent, I think, 3 updates this year. And then in January, of course, I'll have my big data update. So I'll have returns from 2025. But then there's 60 minutes of consultation. And we just do that over, I use Google Meets or Google
Yeah.
Meet or something like that. And you can show me what you're working on and I can
Yeah.
make comments. And I've had several consultations in the last couple of months. And again, I learned there too. They're very informative for me.
Especially the people on this channel, a lot of engineer types that are on. For some reason, I draw a lot of engineer types. I don't know why, because I'm not an engineer, but I guess they like my no thrills, whatever it is, no frills approach. You know what I'm
They
saying?
like your dogs.
Yeah, that's right, Craig. Right. Yes, thank you. All right, well, that's good, Craig. I appreciate it. So we'll again, folks, I'll put the links in the doobly doo downstairs, down in the show notes, and just reach out to Craig. And I mean, like, man, the last thing Craig's gonna do is like, oh, let me upsell you on this annuity. It's not. It's just come on. No, this is
No,
silly. Yeah,
I'm an analyst. I'm a
right.
teacher.
Whatever said.
Yeah. I'm
Craig's
not
talking.
Wall Street, that's for sure.
Right on, Craig. Hang tight for just a second. I'm going to unrecord this. Oh wait, I guess I'm gonna steal it back from you, Craig, to be the host. Don't hang up yet. Reclaim host, and then I'm gonna stop recording here. Hold on just a second.